Today I'm talking about how to be a host for creative or destructive energy. We know from the principle of thermodynamics, energy cannot be created or destroyed. We know that there's such a thing as unborn awareness. Stem cells, when cells have not differentiated yet into who they're going to be, before we go to college, we might not know what our career is going to be. So before a cell becomes a kidney cell, a nerve cell, it isn't yet having that identity. So these are how we can draw upon, for example, what our belief system is going to be like. We have to harvest and kind of cultivate those stem cells. And part of that is how we're going to look at the world. Are we looking with seeing creative instances or destructive circumstances? And in a way, the angel of destruction, this could be a way to think about it. The angel of destruction will look through our eyes. The angel of creation will look through our eyes. This energy can be in us, and actually it tags, this is bad, this is bad, this is good, this is good. And so actually our blindness, sometimes as a host, we may not see things that are right in front of us or that are there. We'll be blinded to objects or beings that have traces of like as the immune system works, foreign cells come in and the white blood cells tag them. And then a different type of cell comes and eats them up. So they have a trace of something that is not what is supposed to be in the host. So this, sometimes being blind actually protects what's around us. When we might be having destructive energy come through us, we may destroy the most precious. Or when we have creative energy, we may look at what's harmful as positive. Some examples of this is that Reuven, I'm going to talk about the first three tribes, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven had Hanoch as a child, and Shimon had Zohar as a child, and Levi had Kahas. So Reuven lost his birthright, but he had Hanoch. Hanoch is the same word as Enoch. Enoch went to heaven before he could cause any destruction to himself or the world. Shimon had Zohar. Shimon was so angry, he killed the city for hurting his sister with his brother Levi. And so Shimon had a son named Zohar. Zohar is radiance. He was able to see the light. So this is actually intergenerational correction. We call in Kabbalah, we call it tikkun. Levi had a child named Kahas. Kahas is now used as the bookstore. Levi was the priest tribe, but he did let his anger get the best of him, and he destroyed those who were violating. And his child, so all of these, their children were parts of them that were able to elevate this energy. So we're not using this necessarily as bad or good. There's an example of Ham, the son of Noah. Noah had the ark, and he had a son who sodomized his father and copulated in the ark. So his children, he had one named Cush, who had this skin he felt too obvious, and he stuck out, and he always carried this feeling of not being safe because of how he looked. And Canaan had a slave mentality. He knew that he wasn't worthy of being here. He had to be a servant of his brothers. So the child is only punished if he repeats his father's sins. And then he can be punished even for his father's sins. And we see this because of the host, for creativity or destruction. And another way to think of this is Passover right now. The cleaning is we clean out whatever distracts us from what's liberating our soul. We might be looking at the wrong way, and we also might be escaping the process. So Passover is a time to look at getting and giving consideration and credit. We are so precious, we matter. We go to all these great lengths to show we matter and to prove that we're getting it right, that we know. And we can clear this up, we can. And Shabbat is like an immunity where everyone's spirit is kind of undressed. So the inner child is released from woundedness, and there's an immunity there because it's not physical. So clearly we're all carrying, and we receive a lot from our parents, but we also have these stem cells already available. And there's something called Shemitah. Shemitah is sabbatical year after 7 years. Debts are defaulted, loans and such forgiven, and also the land cannot be harvested. There needs to be time for growth. So we get to trust cycles. And I look back at what I was doing in 2015, and I had a boyfriend I couldn't be honest with. I was so afraid, and I actually was seduced by another man who promised me so much, and it was a lie. He was married, he had kids, he didn't have any intention of following through. So if I look at it 7 years ago from now I'm being the truth, and I'm not looking outside of me to show that I matter and I'm good enough to get it right. And that came for me as a lot of weight, carrying more weight, growing hair in my body. It was these destructive elements coming out. So what we do plant really matters, and there could be long-term effects of it. There's another thing which is called false certainty, and we usually call this arrogance, controlling speech, and we all need to balance this passive-aggressive. I've been pushing myself too hard. I went to bed 5 a.m. last night because I had so much to do, preparing for the holiday. The holiday and Shabbat are about resting. So I see in some way, like, to balance my passive nature, to rest as I'm doing, I won't get so caught up. I won't lose my voice. I won't feel out of control. So I'm a growth in progress, and what I do now will matter. And what can be birthed? What can be birthed from this uncovering, from looking at these biblical stories, from our own backgrounds? For me, a lot of it is feeling disgusting, and being an addict is putting disgustingness into me just to match it. So there's this pitch, there's this tone, there's this sense as well. We have these 3 angles, and also we have the garden. So we talked about the garden, then there's the pitch, there's the sound itself. And the pitch is like the frequency that goes like this, or big waves. So this experience of riding the waves, trusting these big 7-year cycles, but also moment to moment. And then there's a sense that we have, which is emotions that are being birthed, call them attachments, but really new beliefs that are being birthed, and they result in 2 things: fear or awe. Because we can lose it, or we can be lost. As we get birthed now, we become precious again. We become rebirthed. So if we're a prey, we're thinking someone's going to come and hurt us. We're the predator. We're looking for a way to avoid our own pain. If we're in fear, we're afraid of being hurt. If we're in awe, we are able to see, something that's amazing, and we bend to it. Now, some of the ways in which we can heal this energy is to learn to pacify ourselves, to learn to entertain ourselves, the one that's with us, the one that's like walking with us and in our body. This one needs honesty. Yet we might want to be in charge. If we're honest, we might not be in charge anymore. We may give up we might offer up vulnerability and give up our power. And then on the other side of that is looking for a caretaker. So being honest and learning communication is to receive my own truth. To find some kind of certainty in the world is being okay with being different. This results in accepting myself, respecting myself. Togetherness is really good company, and it goes 2 ways. So I want to be good company for myself too. I need to give myself the emotional space and validation, and we call this in Buddhism the refuge vow. You become the refugee. Everyone is welcoming you as a part of the oneness, and we also become the refuge for people on the way, even while they're seemingly cruel, destructive, violent. No more double standard. We forgive ourselves, we forgive others. And this offers a stable sense of self instead of looking for the self in others. And this is kind of like, in a simple way, what are my hobbies? Maybe singing, dancing, creativity, sensitive, sensual experience. And I might even idealize these and get competitive through them if I'm not actually recognizing other people have faith in different things. Do I really have faith that these are the pathways for me? Would I really share this hobby with another person? It's got to be a foundation of trust and respect. And even in a relationship where we may crave monogamy, partnership, loyalty to be chosen, it's not an excuse not to put the work in. We got to keep choosing ourselves the same way we might want someone else to keep choosing us. We have to give up control and power over life, and we've got to be life and recognize the inherent control and power that comes from having a history. Being at home in ourselves and then going out of ourselves and standing our ground and finding common ground. And it's a regular practice. It's a meshing. And the other is in us first. And sexual liberation means not needing sex at all, and rather it being another form of abundance. Recognizing that kind of intimacy is about openness and projection. Something needs to get through, something needs to receive. So becoming more open to what we're hosting and what we're reciprocating, what we're hosting and what we're reciprocating will allow for realistic standards in a relationship. Now I'm going to talk about joy. Being a host for joy, I'm going to say a bunch of things I wrote, what it feels like to be hosting joy, to be joyous, not to have joy in my pocket, but to host joy is, I'm going to list some words, free association: intimate, reclaimed, pulse, movement, beat, rhythm, flow, myself, pelvis, private, modest, appropriate, personal, underwear, gazing, birthright, chaos, calling, messy, free, sexy, covered, open, humble and protected. I'm the gardener planting seeds too, being respectful to my respectable reflection, being and non-being, life and death. Joy is passive and active, aggressive, direct and indirect, trusting the magnetic, trusting the energy contraction and expansion of life. Nature takes over, feeling sensation and unity with sound, taking accountability of the control. In other words, the control we have is what we're contributing to our life, with our interpretations, with what we're willing to be, being abundant with want and having. Going to the roots of where we have those wounds every day. And what does that result in? Not needing anything from anyone. Complacent. Not without aspiration, but content and satisfied with right now. Thank you for sharing time with me. I'm so glad I could contribute today. I'm doing this for myself, even with my strained voice, even as I prepare for the holiday. Probably will have to upload this after the weekend. Blessing you with awareness of what you're hosting, with self-respect and acceptance, and with joy.